The colony ship New Sol lay broken in the middle of an alien forest. Its metal hull was twisted and torn from the crash landing 3 days ago. Smoke still rose from several sections where fires had burned out. The ship looked like a giant metal whale that had been thrown from the sky and left to die among the strange glowing trees. Jinwoo. Park crawled through the damaged cargo bay with his tool belt hanging from his waist. Every few seconds, sparks shot out from broken wires above his head. He had to duck and cover his eyes when this happened. The air tasted like burned plastic and metal. His work clothes were already dirty with grease and soot. The other survivors stayed in the safer parts of the ship. They counted their water bottles and food packages every few hours. Everyone knew they were running out of time. The ship computer said their distress signal might take months to reach Earth. They would be dead long before help arrived. Jinwoo volunteered to fix the most dangerous parts because that was what he did best. He had spent 15 years fixing broken machines. His hands knew how to find problems and solve them even when everything looked hopeless. The other crew members were scared to go into the damaged sections, but Jinwoo felt comfortable around broken things. Broken things could be fixed if you knew how to look at them the right way. He slid under a fallen support beam and aimed his flashlight at the fusion reactor. The massive machine was the heart of their ship. It provided all their power for lights, air recyclers, and life support systems. Right now it was leaking coolant from a crack in its side. The green liquid dripped steadily onto the floor and made a small puddle that glowed in the dark. Jinwoo pulled out his scanner and pointed it at the reactor. The numbers on the screen made him frown. The leak was getting worse every hour. If he could not stop it soon, the reactor would shut down completely. Without power, everyone on the ship would die within days. He opened his toolkit and selected a plasma welder. The device was small but very hot. He had to be careful not to touch the wrong thing or he might cause an explosion. Jinwoo had done this kind of repair many times before, but never on a damaged ship in the middle of an alien world. The forest outside the ship was unlike anything from Earth. The trees were tall and thin with silver bark that seemed to glow with its own light. Their leaves were purple and blue instead of green. Strange flowers hung from the branches and pulsed with soft colors like heartbeats made of light. Some of the plants moved even though there was no wind. Jinwoo could see them through the holes in the ship hull. He tried not to think about what kinds of animals might live in a forest like this. The other survivors had seen moving shadows between the trees during the day. At night they heard sounds that did not match any Earth creature they knew. Long howls and clicking noises echoed through the darkness. Everyone agreed to stay inside the ship as much as possible. Jinwoo focused on his work and tried to ignore the strange sounds outside. He used his welder to seal the crack in the reactor housing. The plasma beam cut through the damaged metal and fused it back together. Sparks flew everywhere and the air filled with the smell of hot metal. His safety goggles protected his eyes from the bright light. After an hour of careful work, the leak stopped. Jinwoo checked his scanner again and smiled. The reactor was stable for now, but this was only a temporary fix. They needed real replacement parts to make a permanent repair. Those parts were probably scattered across the forest or completely destroyed in the crash. He crawled out from under the reactor and stretched his sore back. Working in cramped spaces always made his muscles ache. Jinwoo wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked around the damaged cargo bay. Broken containers and twisted metal covered the floor. Some of the cargo had been thrown around during the crash and now lay in piles against the walls. A movement outside caught his attention. Something large was walking through the forest toward their ship. Jinwoo could not see it clearly through the gaps in the hull, but whatever it was made the ground shake with each step. The sound was rhythmic and heavy, like a giant walking on two legs. Jinwoo set down his welder and moved closer to one of the holes in the ship wall. He peered out into the glowing forest and tried to see what was coming. The other survivors had warned everyone to watch for dangerous animals, but this sounded different. The footsteps were too regular, too purposeful. This was not a wild animal wandering through the forest. This was something that knew exactly where it was going. The footsteps grew louder and closer. Jinwoo could feel them through the metal floor of the ship. Soon whatever was out there would reach them. He should probably run back to the main sections and warn the others, but curiosity kept him frozen in place. As a mechanic, Jinwoo was always interested in things he had never seen before. His mind wanted to understand how things worked, even if those things might be dangerous. Through the purple and silver trees, a shadow moved toward the ship. It was tall and walked upright like a person, but it was much bigger than any human. Jinwoo estimated it must be at least 8 feet tall, maybe more. Its shape looked wrong somehow, like it had been built instead of born. The footsteps stopped just outside the ship. Jinwoo held his breath and tried to stay perfectly still. Whatever was out there, it knew they were here. The forest had become completely quiet. Even the strange animals had stopped making noise. The only sound was Jinwoo's heart beating fast in his chest. Then something appeared in the gap in the hull where Jinwoo was hiding. He found himself looking at the most incredible thing he had ever seen. The creature that stepped through the gap in the ship hull was like nothing Jinwoo had ever imagined. It stood over 8 feet tall with a body that looked like someone had mixed a reptile with a machine. Its skin was dark gray with patches of metal armor built right into the flesh. Cables and wires ran along its arms like veins made of copper and steel. Its head was long and narrow like a lizard, but where eyes should be, there were glowing red sensors that moved and focused like camera lenses. Metal plates covered parts of its skull and silver wires disappeared into holes drilled in the bone. Its hands ended in fingers that were half flesh and half mechanical tools. Each finger had small cutting blades and precision grippers built into the tips. Jinwoo should have been terrified. Any normal person would have screamed and run away. But instead of fear, Jinwoo felt amazement. He stared at the creature with the same expression he used when looking at a beautiful piece of machinery. This was not just a monster. This was engineering made real. The creature stepped fully into the cargo bay and looked around with its glowing sensors. It moved with perfect balance and control. Every step was calculated and precise. Its head turned from side to side as it scanned the broken equipment and scattered cargo. The red sensors focused on different objects and seemed to analyze everything they saw. Jinwoo noticed that the creature breathing system was partly mechanical. Small vents opened and closed along its neck in a steady rhythm. The sound it made was like a quiet engine running smoothly. Even its heartbeat had a mechanical timing that Jinwoo could hear through the chest plating. The creature sensors finally found Jinwoo hiding behind a pile of broken containers. The red lights focused on him and stayed there. Jinwoo felt like he was being examined by the most advanced scanner ever built. The creature took a step closer and tilted its head to one side. The movement looked curious rather than threatening. Jinwoo slowly stood up from his hiding place. He kept his hands visible and moved very carefully. The creature watched every motion but did not attack. Instead, it seemed to study Jinwoo the same way Jinwoo was studying it. Up close, Jinwoo could see even more amazing details. The metal parts were not just stuck onto the creature body. They were grown into it like they belonged there. Tiny circuits ran under the skin and glowed softly with blue light. The armor plates had scratches and dents that showed this creature had been in many fights. What impressed Jinwoo most were the joints where flesh met machine. The connections were perfect. No gaps, no rough edges, no signs that the parts had been forced together. Someone had designed this creature with incredible skill and attention to detail. Every part worked together in harmony. Jinwoo forgot about being afraid. His mind was completely focused on understanding how this amazing being had been built. He took a careful step closer and pointed at one of the mechanical arms. The creature allowed Jinwoo to approach. It did not move away or show any signs of aggression. Instead, it seemed as curious about Jinwoo as Jinwoo was about it. The red sensors tracked every movement, but in a way that felt more like interest than threat assessment. Jinwoo examined the arm joints and made soft sounds of appreciation. The servo motors were tiny but incredibly powerful. The hydraulic systems were more advanced than anything humans had ever built. The neural connections between the organic brain and mechanical parts must have required technology that was hundreds of years ahead of Earth science. The creature spoke suddenly in a deep, mechanical voice. The words came out in perfect human language even though the mouth was not shaped for human speech. Some kind of translation system must have been built into its communication systems. "You are not afraid," the creature said. Its voice had harmonic undertones that made Jinwoo feel slightly dizzy. Jinwoo looked up at the glowing red sensors that served his eyes. "Should I be afraid?" he asked. "You are the most incredible piece of engineering I have ever seen. Someone put enormous care into building you." The creature head tilted to the other side. This seemed to be its way of showing confusion or surprise. "Building me?" it repeated. "Yes," Jinwoo said with excitement. "Look at this work." He gestured at the creature arm. The motor integration is flawless. The power distribution system must be incredibly efficient, and these sensory clusters are obviously quantum enhanced. This is masterpiece-level engineering. For several seconds, the creature did not respond. Its sensors dimmed and brightened as if it was processing new information. Jinwoo could hear the soft humming of its internal systems working harder than normal. "I am called Kazeth," the creature finally said. "I am a dragon hunter of the Vorthak Empire." "Dragon hunter?" Jinwoo asked. "That sounds like a warrior designation. But your construction is far too sophisticated for just fighting. These hands could perform microsurgery if they needed to. The precision control systems are incredible." Kazeth looked down at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. He flexed his fingers and watched the tiny motors adjust each joint with perfect accuracy. "I was created for elimination of threats to the Empire," he said slowly. "What a waste," Jinwoo said sadly. "Hands like those should be building things, not destroying them. Do you know who designed you? They must be absolute geniuses." This question seemed to confuse Kazeth even more. His sensors flickered rapidly, and his head movements became less steady. "The Empire created me. It is not important who specifically was involved." Jinwoo shook his head. "Of course it matters. Creation like this does not happen by accident. Someone spent enormous time and effort to make you perfect. They should be honored for their work." For the first time since entering the ship, Kazeth took a step backward. His internal systems were making new sounds that Jinwoo had not heard before. It was like listening to a computer trying to process information that did not fit into its programming. "You speak of me as if I am valuable," Kazeth said quietly. "You are valuable," Jinwoo replied immediately. "You are probably the most advanced artificial being ever created. The technology level required to build you must be incredible. Your creators obviously care about excellence and attention to detail." Kazeth stood very still for a long moment. The only sounds were his mechanical breathing and the soft humming of his internal systems. Jinwoo waited patiently for a response. He could see that his words were having some kind of effect on the dragon hunter, but he was not sure what kind. Finally, Kazeth spoke again. "No one has ever described me in such terms before." Kazeth stood motionless in the cargo bay as Jinwoo continued to examine his mechanical components. The dragon hunter was experiencing something completely new. His genetic programming had prepared him for many different responses from prey. Fear, anger, desperate fighting, attempts to run away, but no one had ever looked at him with admiration and respect. Jinwoo walked slowly around Kazeth, pointing out different features with the enthusiasm of someone discovering a new type of engine. "The joint stabilizers in your legs must give you incredible balance," he said. "And look at this shock absorption system in your feet. You could probably drop from a great height without any damage." "I have fallen from orbital insertion pods many times," Kazeth confirmed. "The impact dampeners allow survival of falls from any height within atmospheric conditions." "Orbital insertion," Jinwoo repeated with wonder. "So you are dropped from spaceships as a living weapon. That explains the heat shielding I can see built into your backplating. The thermal management system alone must be incredibly complex." Kazeth turned his head to look at the areas Jinwoo was indicating. He had never considered his heat shielding as anything special. It was simply part of his design, like breathing or walking, but hearing Jinwoo describe it as incredible made him see his own body differently. "The thermal regulation maintains optimal operating temperature in environments ranging from deep, space cold to molten metal heat," Kazeth explained. "It is necessary for mission completion in diverse conditions." "Mission completion," Jinwoo said thoughtfully. "That sounds very cold and formal. Do you enjoy what you do?" The question hit Kazeth like a physical blow. Enjoyment was not a concept that existed in his programming. He performed his duties because that was what he was created for. The idea that he might have personal feelings about his work had never occurred to him. "Enjoyment is not relevant," Kazeth said, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "I complete missions because it is my purpose." Jinwoo stopped walking and looked directly at Kazeth's red sensors. "But what do you want to do? If you could choose any activity, what would interest you?" Kazeth's internal systems began working harder as he tried to process this question. Want was another concept that did not exist in his programming. He had drives and imperatives, but personal desires were not part of his design. Yet, as he looked around the damaged cargo bay, he found himself curious about the human technology. "I find your repair methods interesting," Kazeth admitted slowly. Your tools are primitive compared to Empire technology, yet you achieve functional results. Jinwoo grinned widely. Now you are talking. Would you like to see how human engineering works? I could show you some of our techniques. For several seconds, Kazeth did not respond. His programming told him to complete his mission and eliminate all the humans on the ship. But a stronger impulse was overriding those commands. He wanted to learn more about Jinwoo methods. Show me, Kazeth said. Jinwoo led Kazeth over to the damaged fusion reactor. The dragon hunter had to duck under several low-hanging cables and squeeze between broken containers, but he managed to follow without damaging anything. His movements were surprisingly careful for something so large and powerful. This is our power source, Jinwoo explained, pointing at the massive machine. It creates energy by fusing hydrogen atoms together. The process is very hot and dangerous, so we need strong containment fields to keep it stable. Kazeth scanned the reactor with his built-in sensors. The design is inefficient, he observed. Empire reactors produce 40% more power with half the mass. You are probably right, Jinwoo agreed cheerfully. But this reactor was built with materials we could actually get. Sometimes the best solution is not the perfect solution. Sometimes the best solution is the one that works with what you have. This concept fascinated Kazeth. Empire technology always used the finest materials and most advanced components. The idea of deliberately choosing inferior parts because they were available was completely foreign to his experience. Explain how you make inferior components function adequately, Kazeth requested. Jinwoo picked up his plasma welder and showed Kazeth the repair he had made earlier. See this crack in the containment housing? The proper fix would be to replace the entire section with new parts. But we do not have new parts. So instead I welded a patch using scrap metal and reinforced it with polymer sealant. Kazeth examined the repair with his sensors. The patch was crude and obviously temporary, but it was holding. The human had solved his problem using creativity instead of superior technology. The repair will not last indefinitely, Kazeth pointed out. No, it will not, Jinwoo agreed. But it will last long enough for us to find a better solution. Sometimes that is all you need. Kazeth found himself thinking about this philosophy. His missions always required perfect execution with the best possible equipment. Failure was not acceptable under any circumstances, but Jinwoo was suggesting that imperfect solutions could still have value if they served their purpose. Would you like to try making a repair? Jinwoo offered. Your hands have much better precision than mine. You could probably do work that I cannot manage. Kazeth looked at his mechanical fingers. They had been designed for killing, but Jinwoo was right about their precision capabilities. The same control systems that allowed him to strike with deadly accuracy could also be used for delicate construction work. I have never attempted construction, Kazeth said. Everyone has to start somewhere, Jinwoo replied. Here, let me show you how to use this calibration tool. Jinwoo handed Kazeth a small device that measured electromagnetic field strength. The dragon hunter took it carefully in his large hands. His fingers automatically adjusted to hold the delicate instrument without damaging it. Point it at that junction box over there, Jinwoo instructed. The readings will tell us if the power flow is stable. Kazeth followed the instructions and watched the numbers appear on the small screen. The readings showed fluctuations that indicated potential problems with the electrical connections. The power flow is irregular, Kazeth reported. Good eye, Jinwoo said approvingly. Now we need to find the source of the problem and fix it. Want to help me trace the circuits? Kazeth nodded without thinking. For the first time in his existence, he was being asked to build something instead of destroy it. The warm feeling in his chest grew stronger as he followed Jinwoo deeper into the ship systems. Meanwhile, far above them in space, Empress Nalara was growing concerned. Kazeth had been on the planet's surface for over 2 hours without sending a mission completion report. She activated the neural link that connected her to all dragon hunters and tried to contact him directly. Instead of the expected status update, she received a stream of data that made no sense. Kazeth was learning about human engineering techniques and experiencing emotional responses that should have been impossible. Something was very wrong with her perfect weapon. Kazeth followed Jinwoo through the damaged sections of the ship, carrying tools and learning about human repair methods. His massive frame had to squeeze through tight spaces, but he moved with surprising grace. The dragon hunter was discovering that his combat coordination systems work just as well for delicate engineering tasks. The problem is in this junction box, Jinwoo explained, pointing at a metal panel covered with scorch marks. The power surge during our crash damaged the circuit boards inside. We need to rebuild the connections using whatever spare parts we can find. Kazeth watched as Jinwoo opened the panel and revealed a mess of burned wires and melted components. The damage looked severe, but Jinwoo did not seem discouraged. Instead, he started sorting through the wreckage with practiced efficiency. In the Empire, this entire section would be replaced with new components, Kazeth observed. That would be nice, Jinwoo agreed. But we work with what we have. See this burned relay? The contacts are damaged, but the magnetic coil is still good. We can clean off the contacts and use it again. Jinwoo showed Kazeth how to disassemble the damaged relay without destroying the useful parts. The Dragon Hunter precise fingers made the work much easier than it would have been for human hands. He could manipulate tiny components without any risk of dropping or crushing them. Your touch control is remarkable, Jinwoo said admiringly. I bet you could assemble circuit boards that would take me hours to complete. Kazeth felt that warm sensation in his chest growing stronger. No one had ever praised his abilities for anything other than destruction. Hearing Jinwoo appreciate his precision for construction work created feelings he had no words to describe. I am beginning to understand why you find repair work satisfying, Kazeth said as he carefully cleaned corrosion from a connector. There is satisfaction in making broken things function again. Exactly, Jinwoo replied with enthusiasm. Destruction is easy. Anyone can break things, but fixing them requires skill, patience, and creativity. It requires you to understand how things work and how to make them better. As they worked together, other crew members began to notice Jinwoo's absence. Engineer Yuni came looking for him and stopped short when she saw the massive alien creature working alongside her colleague. Her hand immediately moved to the emergency alarm on her belt. Jinwoo, Yuni said in a carefully controlled voice. Step away from that thing slowly and come toward me. Jinwoo looked up from the circuit board he was repairing. Yune, I want you to meet Kazeth. He has been helping me fix the power distribution system. His precision control is incredible. Yuni stared at the Dragon Hunter with obvious fear. Kazeth could smell the stress hormones coming from her body and hear her heart beating rapidly. His combat programming automatically identified her as a potential threat, but Jinwoo's presence kept those systems from activating. That is a weapons platform, Yune said. Look at the armor plating and combat modifications. It was designed to kill people. He was designed for combat, Jinwoo admitted, but that does not mean combat is all he can do. Watch this. Jinwoo handed Kazeth a damaged microprocessor that was barely larger than a fingernail. Can you replace the burned connections on this chip? Kazeth took the tiny component and examined it with his sensors. The damage was extensive but repairable. He selected the thinnest tools from Jinwoo's kit and began working with movements so precise they were almost invisible to human eyes. Within minutes, Kazeth had replaced all the damaged connections and tested the circuit for proper function. He handed the repaired chip back to Jinwoo with something that looked like pride in his mechanical features. Perfect work, Jinwoo said, examining the repair. Hyune, could you have done that repair so quickly? Hyune stared at the repaired chip in amazement. The connections were flawless, better than anything their automated systems could have produced. How is this possible? She whispered. The same systems that make him an effective warrior also make him an excellent engineer, Jinwoo explained. Precision, coordination, analytical thinking. These abilities have many applications. Kazeth found himself standing straighter as Jinwoo defended his capabilities. The human was not just showing him new skills. Jinwoo was showing him that he had value beyond his original programming. I was created for war, Kazeth said to Hyune, but Jinwoo has shown me that creation can be more satisfying than destruction. Hyune looked back and forth between the massive alien and her human colleague. This is insane, she said. We need to contact Captain Minho immediately. Contact him if you want, Jinwoo replied calmly. But first help us finish this repair. We need the power distribution system working if we want to keep the life support running. Reluctantly, Hyune joined them in the repair work. She remained nervous around Kazeth, but her engineering instincts took over as they tackled the complex technical problems. The Dragon Hunter ability to work with microscopic components made repairs possible that would have been impossible otherwise. As they worked, Kazeth began asking questions about human engineering philosophy. He wanted to understand why humans chose creative solutions over efficient ones, why they valued adaptability over perfection, why they seemed to find joy in solving problems with limited resources. Efficiency is important, Jinwoo explained as they rerouted power cables around damaged sections. But creativity is more important. Efficient solutions work well when everything goes according to plan. Creative solutions work when everything goes wrong. Everything has gone wrong for us, Hyune added, warming up to the discussion despite her fear of Kazeth. Our ship crashed, our equipment is damaged, and we are stranded on an alien world. But we keep finding ways to survive. Kazeth processed this information carefully. The Empire always planned for success and used overwhelming force to ensure victory. But these humans had survived disaster through improvisation and determination. They had turned their weakness into strength. Your species appears to thrive on adversity, Kazeth observed. We do our best work when things look hopeless, Jinwoo agreed with a grin. It forces us to think in new ways. High above them in space, Empress Nalira was experiencing something close to panic. The neural link with Kazeth showed him engaged in collaborative work with the humans. More disturbing, his emotional responses were becoming stronger and more complex. He was developing feelings that had no place in a dragon hunter programming. She tried to activate his recall protocols, sending override commands through the neural link. But Kazeth's consciousness had grown beyond the simple control systems built into his original design. For the first time in Empire history, a dragon hunter was refusing direct orders. Nalira realized she faced a crisis that could threaten the foundation of her rule. If other dragon hunters learned that independence was possible, the entire military structure of the Empire could collapse. She had to act quickly to contain this contamination. The Empress began preparing the extermination protocol. If Kazeth could not be recovered, then he and everything he had been exposed to would have to be destroyed completely. Captain Minho arrived at the repair site with 3 security officers following close behind. All of them carried energy weapons and looked ready to use them. Word had spread through the ship that Jinwoo was working with some kind of alien monster. The captain expected to find his engineer held hostage or worse. Instead, he found Jinwoo and Hyune working peacefully alongside the massive creature. All 3 of them were focused on a complex circuit board repair. The alien was using tools with incredible precision while Jinwoo provided guidance and encouragement. "Jinwoo," Captain Minho called out carefully, "please step away from the creature and report to me immediately." Jinwoo looked up from his work with obvious annoyance. "Captain, we are in the middle of repairing the main power distribution system. This work cannot wait. The backup generators will fail within 6 hours if we do not restore primary power." "That thing is a weapon," Captain Minho said, pointing at Kazeth. "Look at the armor plating and combat modifications. It was sent here to kill us." Kazeth stopped working and turned his glowing sensors toward the captain. The security officers immediately raised their weapons, but Kazeth made no threatening moves. Instead, he carefully set down his tools and stood up slowly with his hands visible. "I was sent to eliminate your crew," Kazeth admitted in his mechanical voice. "But Jinwoo has shown me that there are better purposes for my abilities. You see," Captain Minho said to Jinwoo, "it just confessed to being an assassin. We need to neutralize this threat immediately." "Wait," Jinwoo said, stepping between the weapons and his new friend. Kazeth chose not to complete his mission. He chose to help us instead. That decision should mean something. Kazeth felt a strange warmth at hearing Jinwoo defend him. The human was willing to risk his own safety to protect someone who had been sent to kill him. This concept of loyalty based on friendship rather than programming was completely new to Kazeth's experience. "The creature is obviously malfunctioning," Captain Minho said. "Weapons do not choose their own targets. Someone is controlling it remotely." "Nobody is controlling me," Kazeth said firmly. "I am making my own decisions for the first time in my existence." The captain studied Kazeth carefully. The alien did seem to be acting independently, rather than following pre-programmed behaviors. But that made the situation even more dangerous. An unpredictable weapon was worse than a controlled one. "Even if that is true," Captain Minho said, "how do we know you will not change your mind? How do we know this is not some kind of trap?" Kazeth considered the question seriously. Trust was another concept that did not exist in his original programming, but he was beginning to understand its importance. "You do not know," he said finally. "Trust must be earned through actions over time. I can only ask for the opportunity to prove my intentions. Jinwoo nodded approvingly. That is exactly right. Trust is earned, not given. Kazeth has already started earning it by helping us repair our ship. Captain Minho was about to respond when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed red, and the computer voice announced an incoming transmission on all frequencies. Everyone stopped what they were doing and listened as the message began playing through the ship speakers. The voice that filled the air was unlike anything the humans had ever heard. It carried harmonic undertones that made their bones vibrate, and their minds feel cloudy. Even through the translation system, the alien authority was unmistakable. I am Empress Nalira of the Vorthak Empire, the voice announced. You are harboring stolen Imperial property. Return the dragon hunter designated Kazeth immediately, or face complete annihilation. Kazeth's entire body went rigid when he heard his Empress voice. Genetic programming that had been suppressed for hours suddenly activated with overwhelming force. His legs began moving toward the ship exit before his conscious mind could stop them. Every cell in his body screamed at him to obey his creator. But after only 3 steps, Kazeth stopped. He stood perfectly still with his hands clenched into fists, fighting an internal war between programmed loyalty and newfound independence. Sweat appeared on his organic skin while his mechanical parts ran diagnostics to understand the conflict. Kazeth, Jinwoo said softly. You do not have to go. You can choose to stay. Choice, Kazeth repeated, his voice strained with effort. You told me that purpose is something I choose for myself. The Empress voice continued broadcasting threats and demands, but Kazeth was no longer listening. Instead, he focused on Jinwoo words and the warm feeling in his chest that had grown stronger over the past few hours. For the first time in his existence, someone valued him for what he could create rather than what he could destroy. I choose to stay, Kazeth said, turning away from the ship exit. I choose friendship over programming. I choose to build rather than destroy. The moment those words left his mouth, something fundamental changed in Kazeth's neural patterns. The genetic loyalty programming that had controlled his entire existence simply stopped working. It was still there, but it no longer had power over his decisions. Captain Minho stared at the massive alien in amazement. You just defied your own creator, he said. Yes, Kazeth replied simply. Jinwoo taught me that I am more than what others made me to be. The Empress voice cut off abruptly, replaced by a new message that made everyone's hearts sink. You have 1 hour to comply with Imperial demands, Nalira announced. After that time, this planet will be sterilized completely. Nothing will survive. Jinwoo looked at Kazeth with concern. Can she really destroy the entire planet? The Empire has weapons capable of igniting planetary atmospheres, Kazeth confirmed grimly. Empress Nalira will carry out her threat if she believes I have been permanently compromised. Captain Minho grabbed his communicator and began issuing orders to his crew. All hands prepare for immediate evacuation. Load the emergency pods and prepare to abandon ship. The pods will not save you, Kazeth said sadly. Imperial sensors will detect any escape attempt. The sterilization weapons will eliminate everything in the system. Silence fell over the group as they realized the hopelessness of their situation. By choosing friendship over obedience, Kazeth had doomed everyone he was trying to protect. The irony was bitter and painful, but Jinwoo was not ready to give up. His mind was already working on the problem, looking for creative solutions that others might miss. There has to be a way, he said. There is always a way if you think hard enough. Kazeth looked at his human friend with something that might have been hope. If anyone could find an impossible solution, it would be Jinwoo. The mechanic had already performed one miracle by teaching a weapon to choose friendship over programming. Maybe he could perform another. Jinwoo paced back and forth in the cargo bay while his mind worked on the impossible problem. 58 minutes remained before Empress Nalira would destroy the entire planet. The Imperial fleet hung in orbit above them like mechanical vultures waiting to strike. Every escape route had been cut off by superior technology and overwhelming firepower. But Jinwoo had spent his entire life solving problems that seemed impossible. He looked at the damaged fusion reactor, the jury-rigged power systems, and the creative repairs they had made over the past few hours. Then he looked at Kazeth, who stood nearby with his glowing sensors dimmed in what might have been sadness. Kazeth, Jinwoo said suddenly, What exactly are the sterilization weapons? How do they work? Quantum cascade bombs, Kezeth replied. They create a chain reaction in atmospheric gases that spreads across the entire planet's surface. Everything organic is consumed in the reaction. Quantum cascade, Jinwoo repeated thoughtfully. That means they need a specific atmospheric composition to work properly. What happens if the atmosphere is wrong? Kezeth's sensors brightened with interest. The cascade reaction would fail to propagate. But altering an entire planet atmosphere is impossible with available technology. Maybe, Jinwoo said with a growing smile. But what if we do not need to change the whole atmosphere? What if we only need to change it in one small area? Captain Minho had been listening to the conversation with growing confusion. What are you thinking, Jinwoo? I am thinking about the most basic rule of human engineering, Jinwoo replied. When you cannot solve the big problem, solve a smaller problem that makes the big problem irrelevant. Jinwoo began pulling out tools and components from the ship storage areas. His movements were quick and purposeful, as he gathered everything he needed for a new kind of repair job. Kezeth, I need to know everything about Imperial sensor systems. How do they track targets? What can they detect? Imperial sensors detect all forms of electromagnetic radiation, gravitational disturbances, quantum field fluctuations, and organic biosignatures, Kezeth explained. Nothing can hide from them for more than a few minutes. What about something that is not hiding? Jinwoo asked. What about something that looks exactly like what they expect to see? Kezeth tilted his head in confusion. Explain your meaning. Jinwoo held up a damaged communications array from the ship wreckage. Your Empress wants proof that you are dead and that we have been eliminated. What if we give her exactly what she wants to see? You cannot fake my destruction, Kezeth said. Imperial sensors would detect the deception immediately. Not fake it, Jinwoo corrected. Really do it. But do it in a way that leaves the important parts intact. For the next 40 minutes, Jinwoo worked with fevered intensity to modify the ship quantum transmitter. He stripped components from every available system and rebuilt them into something completely new. Kezeth helped with the precise work while Captain Minho and his crew watched in amazement. This is crazy, Yune said, as she watched Jinwoo wire quantum processors to the fusion reactor. Even if this works, it could destroy the ship. The ship is already doomed, Jinwoo replied without looking up from his work. But the people inside it do not have to be. With 15 minutes remaining, Jinwoo finished his modifications and began the activation sequence. The improvised device hummed to life and began generating the specific quantum frequencies he needed. Warning lights flashed as the fusion reactor strained to provide the enormous power requirements. Kezeth, Jinwoo said, I need you to trust me completely. This will not be pleasant, but it should not cause permanent damage. I trust you, Kezeth replied without hesitation. What do you need me to do? Jinwoo positioned Kezeth next to the modified transmitter and began adjusting the quantum field generators. I am going to disrupt your neural pathways temporarily. To Imperial sensors, it will look like your consciousness has been destroyed, but the disruption should only last a few hours. And then you wake up as someone who chose his own path, Jinwoo said with a smile. Someone who proved that friendship is stronger than programming. Above them in orbit, Empress Nalira watched the countdown timer reach its final minutes. Her finger hovered over the activation control for the planet sterilization weapons. Part of her hoped that Kezeth would return to his programming at the last moment, but she knew that was unlikely. The contamination had spread too far. Suddenly, her sensors detected a massive quantum explosion from the planet's surface. The energy signature matched exactly what would happen if a Dragon Hunter power core overloaded catastrophically. Moments later, she received confirmation that all human biosignatures had vanished from the crash site. Nalira stared at the sensor readings in shock. Had the human somehow forced Kezeth to self-destruct? Or had her Dragon Hunter chosen to destroy himself, rather than return to Imperial service? Either way, the contamination had been eliminated. She canceled the sterilization protocol and ordered her fleet to withdraw from the system. There was nothing left worth investigating. On the planet's surface, Jinwoo watched Kezeth's massive form lying motionless beside the smoking transmitter. The quantum disruption had worked perfectly, creating false readings that convinced Imperial sensors of complete destruction. But now came the real test. Hours passed before Kezeth's optical sensors flickered back to life. He sat up slowly and looked around the cargo bay with confusion. His neural patterns were completely different now, freed from all traces of Imperial programming. Did it work? Kazeth asked. Jinwoo grinned and pointed at the empty sky above them. The Imperial fleet is gone. They think we are all dead. You are free to choose your own future. Kazeth stood up and examined his hands with wonder. The same precision that had once been used for killing could now be used for any purpose he chose. He looked at Jinwoo with something that could only be called affection. What will you do now? Jinwoo asked. I want to learn more about human engineering, Kazeth replied. I want to understand how to build things that help people instead of harming them. Will you teach me? Partner, Jinwoo said, placing his hand on Kazeth's armored shoulder. I would be honored to teach you everything I know. Captain Minho shook his head in amazement. So let me understand this correctly. You defeated an galactic empire by teaching their ultimate weapon to value friendship over duty? Not defeated, Jinwoo corrected. Changed. Kazeth proved that anyone can choose to be better than what others expect them to be. That is more powerful than any weapon. As the twin suns set over the alien forest, Jinwoo and Kazeth returned to their repair work on the ship. They had a long journey ahead of them, both in fixing their vessel and in exploring what it meant to be free. But they would face that journey together, as friends who had chosen each other over the expectations of their creators. The galaxy had become a more interesting place,